Hello everyone, a very good evening to you all. I'm Pragya, your host for today. Happy to welcome you all to a brand new session of Ask Me Anything, organized by Institute of Product Leadership. In this talk today, we'll know in detail about how to get into product management career from a business analyst role. Before we start today's session, let me give you a quick intro to the Institute. The Institute of Product Leadership is Asia's first business school providing accredited degree programs and certification courses in product management, product leadership, data science, design, strategy, and leadership. The Institute has partnered with 3 universities in India and the University of Houston in the United States. The Institute was founded in 2012 with a singular mission of creating 10,000 plus product leaders in the country. Ever since, the organization has designed and delivered programs in collaboration with various institutes, universities, and corporates to senior working professionals to help them make career transition into product leadership. The Institute has built and developed a community of over 3,300 plus successful alumni, leading the product, data, and design teams across the world. We are also knowledge partners for 220 plus organizations worldwide. Folks, the PGPM program, that is the postgraduate program in product management, is an 11 months, 11 skill, 11 capstone, learning by doing program designed by leading industry practitioners for practitioners like you who are wanting to build end-to-end global product perspective, specializing in product management, product design, product and digital strategy, product and growth marketing, data-driven products, leadership, and new venture creation. You can find out more about the Institute and the programs offered on our website. Please check the chat window for the URL. And for those who have joined us via LinkedIn, please check the comment section for the URL. Once our speakers present their insight, we'll open up for questions. Please keep your questions ready. You can post your questions in the Zoom Q&A section. The session is being streamed live on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. So viewers on any of these channels, please feel free to post all your questions, comment in the comment section, and we'll share it with the speaker. Without further delay, please allow me to welcome the very distinguished and eminent speaker for today's session, Mr. Sai Satish Veda. Mr. Sai Satish is a product leader with extensive hands-on experience in building and bringing disruptive technology products to market. He has worn many hats during his career, all the way from programmer, designer, architect, analyst, manager, to chief strategist for global products in large corporations. He was most recently the Senior Director of Product Management at Oracle. He is also an executive coach and senior faculty at Institute of Product Leadership. And for the discussion, I'm pleased to invite Ms. Anurakta Mohante and Mr. Srinivas Vinakota. Currently, Anurakta is serving as a senior product manager in Atlassian. She has 8+ years of experience in IT. Prior to this, she worked in MNC like VMware, Shell, Accenture in business analyst and product owner role. Besides work, she is also a certified life coach and author of the book, A Step Back to Run Faster and Farther. In her leisure, she loves traveling and exploring new places. And Mr. Srinivas is a part-time product manager, is a part of product team, which is building chatbots for employee solutions on Core AI platform. Prior to Core AI, he was a lead analyst for transportation domain for Conduent. Worked for 10 years as a business analyst in the French automobile company, Pega CRM Tolling Solutions. Other than work, his hobbies are traveling, exploring places, and painting. We are delighted to have you all here today. And to begin with today's session, I would like to hand over the session to Mr. Sai Satish.
Thank you, Pragya. Can you allow us to share the video, start the video? Looks like that is temporarily disabled. Thank you, and good evening, everyone. I know I'm sure it's a busy day, the fact that many of you have joined this at this hour shows the level of interest and at least a curiosity to know what is product management, how can we transition that from business analyst role. So I'm assuming many of you are actually business analysts. So looks like, are you able to see me okay? Great. And Anurakta and Srinivas, hello, good evening. How are you guys doing?
Yeah, I'm fine. Thank you. Sorry.
Awesome. Super. So, every time we do this, ask me anything, right? There's something interesting that happens. Ask me anything in product management. You will see variety of questions, very interesting questions. While many of them are relevant, some of them are not necessarily. And so in the interest of time, the way I think we could go about doing this is, let me start by setting some context and a structural understanding of what product management is for several of the audience who is joining from the business analysis stages, right, or roles currently they are in. And then would love to put a spotlight on the two stars here. And I would be absolutely thrilled and delighted to facilitate the discussion with both of you, Anurakta and Srinivas. And then, of course, the third part is we will certainly take some questions from the audience, right? And which means that I would strongly encourage the audience to ask your questions on the chat Q&A window on the Zoom. If you're on Zoom, if you're joining us on LinkedIn or YouTube or any of those, feel free to ask them in the corresponding thread, and I'll try and consolidate them and paraphrase them and also bring the relevant ones. Yeah. So thanks for the introduction again, Pragya. So really quickly, the perspectives that I want to bring in today are from two experiences, right? One, I spent more than a couple of decades building very large scale products for very large companies. And more interestingly, in fact, there's a very fascinating statistics that about 71% of the people, of the product managers, actually are accidental product managers, right? Which means they did not plan to be, but they ended up in that role. And then they started questioning, what is this role? It is, of course, chaotic. It is also interesting. Is this something right for me? And then have taken that steps. And the remaining ones are the ones that made very deliberate, concerted effort to make that transition. So I must say I'm in that 30%. I come from an engineering background. I worked in some amazing companies. I'm sure some of the audience might recollect a company called Sun Microsystems, which built the foundations of internet and some incredible technologies. I was part of some life-changing projects, if you will. And along the way, I realized that there is an interesting set of responsibilities that you can actually take up, which includes understanding your customers, understanding the problems, understanding the market, and coming back and working with the teams to make some contextual decisions around that. And only later, somebody told me that that is called product management, right? And I'm talking about 14 years ago. And at that time, there were no structural way of approaching this. The discipline and the role itself is kind of nascent in India. But thankfully, I had some amazing mentors, guides, people. But of course, it did, make me make lots of mistakes, right? And so today, I spend, along with several of my colleagues and several of my friends across the industry, in helping people make that career transition into product management without making the same mistakes that many of us have done, and go make your own new mistakes, right? So it helps people to compress the learning time so that you can make a structured and decisive move into this, right? So those are the two perspectives that I will bring in. So I've been part of a coach for hundreds of various people from different functional roles, including engineering, project management, business analysis, design, marketing, pre-sales, and all of that. And were able to make these transition into role. Of course, the paths are slightly different. The emphasis that you put on certain areas is going to be different. So I will bring that perspective. So let me spend about 10 to 15 minutes maximum on giving a better way of thinking and understanding of what product management is, what does it entail, and at least at a high level, what are some methods, proven methods that people have taken to get into that roles. And then I want to jump in and ask the most interesting questions to, as I said, the two guest speakers here on how they have actually made that transition, right? It's always good to hear individual people's journeys and what they have gone through and how they made it happen. And as we go through, again, to the audience, I strongly encourage all of you to ask questions, and I'll bring them up towards the end of this conversation. Yeah, so with that, let me just quickly begin and start. Many of you, I'm sure, are business analysts in the audience, right? A title could be, business analyst, senior business analyst, or manager business analyst, or anything. So as a BA, you are fundamentally focused on, analyzing a particular business, usually a client business. It could be in different industries. It could be financial services. It could be automotive. It could be technology, or whatever it is. Analyzing that business, identifying some problems or challenges, either in the context of specific workflows or some larger context as well, identifying the opportunities to address them to create some business impact, and of course coming up and proposing certain solutions. And along the way, you're kind of a conduit between the project team, if you will, that is actually building some solutions to solve those business requirements. And then on the other side, you have the business, right? So most of the focus and effort and time is spent on business requirements, defining them with clarity, and then working with somebody in the project team to translate that into project requirements or implementation requirements or any of those. And I know a lot of business analysts also spend time in stakeholder management, right? Now, stakeholder management is a very broad word, but you're essentially working with the project team as well as on the customer side or the client side, and at the same time, some leadership teams in your organization. So, but the thing is, all of that happens often in the context of projects and in the context of working with one client at a time, or probably two clients at a time, with a goal of delighting that client, right? Often your goal is, delight is very important, but mostly in the context of that particular client or a couple of clients. Whereas what is different when it comes to product management is you are actually focusing not on one client, two client, or this thing. You are focusing on delighting a market, right? A market is essentially a group of customers. Now, there are variations in those group of customers. In the product management vocabulary, we call them as customer segments, right? And a collection of customer segments is a market. So the job of a product manager is basically, this role is, it's an art and science. It's a combination. A lot of people think data analysis and proof points and all of that, which is important. But at the same time, there is a fundamental art of how you go about doing this, right? And I'll talk about that in a minute. So it's art and science of identifying the market needs, right? It's not just identifying the client needs or the client requirements, as we say, but identifying the needs of a particular market, right? And then, again, often you hear cliches when it comes to product management. You are the owner of something, you are the CEO of the product. I kind of chuckle when I hear those things, right? Sure, maybe CEO of the product, but without the glamour, without the power, without the money, right? So if you want to be called as a CEO of product, by all means, but essentially you are responsible to drive the teams towards creating compelling products, competitive products, and most importantly, profitable products, right? So that's a fundamental responsibility of anyone in the product management role, right? So to kind of put another spin on this is asking these three questions. Can we build something that people want and also be profitable, right? It turns out it is extremely challenging to answer all these questions, right? A lot of products in the market fail, not because they were not able to build the right product, but because they were not able to find customers for it. And they're not able to find customers for it because you're building something that most of these customers don't want, right? So identifying, focusing on those market needs, and then coming back and making that decision about, and these are all strategic decisions, by the way. So hence, this is also called as a strategic decision-making role, right? Now, what is a strategic decision-making role? All of you in your own work context are making lots of decisions, right? But a strategic decision is something that directly impacts the business, right? So the questions like, is this problem real? is this problem urgent? And is this problem worth solving? Right? It's a very critical question to ask before you even decide that let's build something towards it. And then when you're building about it, are we building the product right? But more importantly, are we building the right product? Right? So these are seemingly innocuous and fundamental and commonsensical questions, but there's a lot of competencies and skills that are required and a lot of collaboration, cross-functional work that is needed to answer these questions, right? And make those decisions as well. So we also call this, several people call this as feasibility, desirability, and viability, right? So good products exist at the intersection of this desirability, which is there are a group of customers who actually have the problems that we think that they have, needs or challenges that they have, and they are willing to solve this. And of course, we have the ability to actually create a product or a solution to address those problems better than many other alternatives that exist today in the market. And along the way, of course, can we actually make this as a viable product, which means financially sustainable product? Now, we're not necessarily talking about profit. Motive could be profit. It doesn't have to be profit, but financially sustainable, right? Otherwise, you can't run the product team, you can't run the organization. So these are absolutely three critical aspects when it comes to product management. Now, at different levels of product management, you will certainly are expected to have certain different sets of competencies. Right now, this slide is a little busy slide if you look at it, but there is a very simple way to interpret this. And the way is this. So you have about 25 competencies in products right now, all the way starting from entry-level associate product manager to all the way to a product leader. Right? The product leader not necessarily can come from product management, but I'll talk about in a second, how do you think about a product leader? But this flywheel that you see, you have 4 different colors, right? And 5 groups, if you will, 5 competencies, if you will. The light blue one that you see, it's called product planning stage, is often the responsibility of what we call as product owners in many organizations, right? Now, I also want to caution a little bit about these titles, right? In India, we have some very interesting creative titles. A couple of months ago, one of the alumni from IPL who I had coached came back and mentioned to me saying that, hey, you know what? I actually made a transition, but my title is requirements scientist, right? I was like, what? Requirements scientist. Now, because of course, HR is getting very creative to attract talent, and a lot of people want to be in product roles, and hence these titles are coming up. But titles aside, I'm going to focus more on the role and responsibility part of it, right? So that way, some companies, in fact, many companies call their business analysts today as product owners, right? In fact, if you look at it, the role and responsibilities that they've been doing as BAs is pretty much the same. It has not changed. But now you're in the context of products. You're building probably products to the market, and hence it's important to call a product owner, right? And in some companies, a product managers actually are doing product owner responsibilities, right? Which is that light blue thing that you see, fundamentally about requirements management, working with designers to create some prototypes, and ensuring that the engineering teams actually have clarity on what they need to build and develop, ensuring that what is defined is actually being delivered, right? So I'm sure if you come from the agile background, many of you are familiar with terms like user stories, definition of done, and things like that, right? So a lot of product owners in this country, especially, are responsible for the light blue things. So some of them may not even have road mapping responsibilities, right? Product roadmap is a very strategic tool and a very important artifact from a product management standpoint. So the dark blue ones are what we call as inbound product management, right? So this is where you also have titles of product manager, senior PM, group PM, and all of that. And the red ones are outbound product management, which means now you're actually responsible for taking the value that is created as part of that product or offering and communicating, identifying the right set of people to communicate that value to, and segmenting the customers in such a way, positioning your product, and communicating that value compared to that price, right? So it's product marketing aspect of it. Now, there's another interesting role, right? You don't find this as a title in many companies, is product leader. Now, product leaders are not necessarily coming from product management. This is a common myth that people have, right? In fact, in many companies, if you look at senior engineering leaders, right, whether it's director of engineering, director of design, or head of marketing, and pre-sales, and partnerships, and all of that, when all of these senior functional leaders come together in the context of making strategic decisions in the product, and you are expected to make your own functional decisions, right? Which means if you come from design, you are now making decisions in your design organization based on the whatever is the strategic choice that the organization has made, right? So you're still a product leader, right? So it's important to think that way. Product leader is not necessarily a director of products or VP of product management, although they are, but there are other roles, even in customer success, by the way. So these are fundamentally how you want to understand. And the ones that you see in those competencies are the skills, right? Now, I want to make a slight distinction between understanding, knowledge, and skills in a minute. But, and when a lot of people ask me this question, right? What is a career path for product managers? Now, of course, we can look at it from a role and title perspective and say, APM, PM, senior PM, group PM, director PM, senior director, vice president, CPO, and CEO, and all of that stuff, right? So those are titles. But I thought a slightly different way to understand this, right? If you look at this X and Y axis, there is a tree and then there is a forest, right? On the left side is a tree and the right side, which means your perspective of the market, right? Of what you are doing. The Y-axis is the heart and the brain and the mind, right? Or the brain, if you will. So if you now look at this, here are 4 archetypes, right? And I'm sure many of you have heard of this word called persona, right? So here are the 4 personas of a product manager, right? So one is on the bottom left corner, you have organizer, which means this person is very focused on that one particular tree, the branches of that tree, making sure that the tree grows well, the branches, shoot well, and then focused mostly on, applying some analytics, bringing in some data, working with the teams, identifying issues, prioritizing those issues, working with the teams. And this is often you find product analysts, product owners, right? Very tactical approach, very important approach, but very tactical, execution-driven day-to-day approach. And then you have organizer, right? So this is a person now, while you're still focusing on one tree here, in a way, sense of represents one particular product or modules of that product, right? Many of you understand this module concept. Whether it's a technology product or non-technology, doesn't matter. Each product is composed of various components, right? Now, this person brings in some elements of empathy and people, understanding people, working with them very closely, and prioritizing things based on lots of teams that they are doing. Primary objective is to make people feel supported in this, right? So you also have product owners again coming into this a little bit, and PMs as well. Then you have advocacy. Advocacy is outward looking, which means I'm looking at evolution of markets, how are behaviors changing, what are the technology trends, what are the industry trends that are happening. But at the same time, I'm actually bringing customer centricity into this, right? Which means we want to spend a lot more time understanding our customers, their journeys, their workflows, and what challenges do they have in that context, bring that insight back into it, and be a lot more strong listener and a fantastic communicator, right? And that's a little bit about the advocate part of it. And then you have explorers. Now, these are the people who will stand up on the stage, rally hundreds of team members, inspire them, saying that, look, that's our next big opportunity. And here is what is happening in the market. Here are the trends. Here is the competition. And that's where we need to look at and answer, right? So it's basically more about bringing that, taking that vision that the organization has decided upon, bringing the trends from outside in perspective, and spends a lot more time on inspiring the people inside, right? So the titles usually fall this way, right? And so that's how you can think about the role or the approach or the career progression of various product managers. In fact, I have gone from a senior PM, of course, because by the time I actually got into product management, I was already about 13 years, 14 years into work experience, right? So I was fortunately able to skip certain levels and get to senior PM, and from there, an incremental growth up to the C-level parts of things, right? So that's the way to look at it. Now, to quickly summarize, I think along with the skill sets, what I found a little challenging for people who don't come from the product background is this mindset part of it, right? And the mindset often is project, execution, tactical, right? So one thing is changing that mindset from managing projects to designing and delivering experiences, right? So which means you've got to build that, bring that customer centricity into this, and the customer is not your client anymore. This customer is a representation of a group of customers or a customer segment, right? So and there could be variety of needs, variety of challenges or problems in that context. And I also move from lots of requirements analysis, requirements management, the requirements definition, to actually identifying what problems should we even solve. And in the scheme of things, how do we even prioritize? Prioritization is I'm sure Srinivas and Anurupta will attest to this now, is prioritization is an extremely challenging exercise, right? It's not about whether we can do this within the sprint or will it require 2 sprints. You will actually have inputs from sales teams, from marketing teams, from your customers, from your executive leadership team, from partners, from your own engineering development teams, right? Now, in all this context, how do we even prioritize? Now, this is extremely challenging. And that's why I also kind of want to caution a lot of people who want to get into this role, right? It's no doubt it is a fantastic role. It's a high impact role. It's a high growth role and also very high paying role, right? But it's not for everyone. It is chaotic, it is uncertain, and you really have to work with many different people to get certain things done, right? And you should enjoy it. If you are not enjoying that, it can become very stressful, right? So believe me, a lot of people who got into product management that I know got in for the wrong reasons and later realized this is not for me. Right, so it's okay if it's not for you. But again, if you're focusing on the responsibilities, I'm sure you will take a lot more deliberate approach as opposed to some title-based things, right? And influencing without authority, I'm sure you've heard of this phrase, is very real. And the single reason why it is real is because you are working with multiple different teams to get alignment on what we need to do in the product and why we need to do this, right? So, you're working with designers, you're working with engineers, QA people, say all of these people that we talked about, the functional roles, and none of them will report to you ever. In fact, no product manager will report to you until you actually get to maybe group PM or a director of PM in many companies. And there is a reason for this, right? So if you're a person who's saying, I want people to report to me, I want to manage people, then maybe you want to think twice about this particular role to get into, right? So be deliberate, be conscious about understanding and getting into this role. The last one on this one is you will be expected to set directions, right? For a long time, many folks in project management or business analysts, even in entry-level product managers are following directions. Somebody has set the direction, you've been told what to do, and most of us, you don't even question saying that, why are we doing what we are doing, right? But now it's a job of the product manager to actually set that direction, explain the why behind the what, and then leave the how part to the experts, right? The experts here are the people who are actually building that product or solution to you. So that's key. So I'll end it with 3 tips, right? And as I said, these tips come from lots of coaching sessions and guiding people into various roles in product management. Build cross-functional understanding, right? There is no substitute for this. You may be an expert in one particular area, one particular functional role. For example, business analysis, right? Now, many of you also recognize that business analysis is increasingly becoming important to have some data analysis skills, right? So you're expected to bring in data to analyze the particular business workflows, what is working, what is not working, part of it. But this goes much beyond that, right? You need to have a thorough understanding of product design. When I say understanding, it's not just about learning, right? It's about your ability to actually apply those things, build certain things, create certain things. You may not want to be a designer, right? You may never want to be a designer. That's okay. But you are going to work with designers. And hence, it becomes very critical for you to develop that vocabulary, develop that frameworks and concepts so that the other person does not look at you saying, "Arey, he doesn't know anything. We can goof around. We can give whatever estimates that we want to give," right? So design is one such aspect. Prioritization and roadmap is another aspect. Product marketing is a very important aspect, right? Again, you may not want to be a product marketer, but that could be a stepping stone for you if you're coming from the inbound product management world. For people who come from the pre-sales and marketing, that's actually an entry point for them into product management, and then they move into inbound part of things. So build this cross-functional understanding and skills. Second tip is do not bet your career transitions based on a declarative instrument called resume, right? Especially if you don't have a prior experience as a product manager. It is, as I mentioned, it is a strategic role. And I can also talk to you as a hiring manager. I've been a hiring manager for many years. I've hired 60 plus product managers. And especially if you're coming from without prior experience, I'm actually going to want some evidence that you can do certain things, right? Not just declaring them on a resume, saying that I know how to do market analysis, pricing, packaging, positioning, customer segmentation, prototyping, and all of that. Remember, anybody and everybody can add those keywords to their resumes, and they are doing it, right? It's not hypothetical. Everybody is doing it because people want to beat that filtering systems on resumes, right? So what you really need is demonstration of skills, right? Which means ability to showcase. Build something, put your hands together. It's okay if you are not doing a fantastic job, but at least you want to show to people that not only you know and you understand that, but you're able to apply it, right? That's a key part, I think, tip number 2. And the final one is, I often say that sometimes it is more important to who you know than what you know, right? And what this means is, especially if you're 10 plus years in the industry, building networks becomes super crucial. And when I say network, I don't mean just connecting on LinkedIn, right? That's probably not the best way of making networks, right? So you'll have to access to people who have gone through similar journey as yours and probably in different roles. And you may want to actually go and offer what you can do, right? Hey, how can I help you? Is a fantastic starting line to anyone, right? Before you go and ask, there is that interesting job opportunity in your company. Can you please refer me? Right now, if you ask that, many people are turned off by that right away, right? But if you actually build that relationship and rapport by offering what you can do to them to help them, and then later on leverage that by saying, can you please, help me refer me into that organization. A lot of people will do that, right? So keep that in mind. It is not natural for many of us, right? Many people come back to me and say, but I'm an introvert. How do I do it, right? And I give my own example. In fact, I was an introvert, but until I realized the difference between being an introvert and being actually putting yourself in a different context because you have to do it, right? So there are certain things that you will have to overcome, of course, but this is a super important tip for anyone who wants to grow into senior roles, right? So that's basically the 3 tips. And I think let's hear more from again, Anurakta and Srinivas about how they started their journey. How did they even decide that this is something that they want to do? So yeah, you guys ready? So I have some curious questions, if you will. We can start off with that as and when people start asking the question. Yeah.
Sure.
Okay. Awesome. So now both of you are working in some very interesting companies. I know Atlassian is very popular among especially the technology crowd or IT companies. Most of them might be using at least one product of Atlassian, whether it's Jira or Trello or Confluence or any of those. It's actually, Anurakta, one of my favorite companies, right? No, seriously, because I spent some time having conversations with the head of product of Atlassian, and the culture and the values that that organization brings are, I think, very unique and different, right? So I think you're fortunate to actually be in that organization. And Srinivas, core AI, interesting thing aside, I'm quite familiar with this organization. One of my cousin was a chief marketing officer in Core AI, and another cousin is actually a product manager in that company. And I think you guys build conversational interfaces to primarily financial services and industry. Am I right? Are you able to hear me, Srinivas?
I lost for some time.
Yeah, no. So I was just saying, Core AI, you guys build products using conversational interfaces for the financial services industry to start with, and I'm sure there are many other going on.
We started with the financial services, but now we are exploring towards employee solutions. Just like
great. So here's what I want to know, right? Why product management? Why did you guys think that is the right thing for you? And both of you in the past, you worked as business analysts, right? If I am not wrong. So what got you interested in getting into product management? So Anurukta, if you want to tell us about it.
Sure. Thank you so much for this. So for me, if I see my career here, basically I did my engineering and then my MBA, and I started my career as a business analyst in Accenture. And to be honest, I really liked my job as a business analyst, getting clarity on the requirements, understanding them, connecting to the engineering team, and making sure that the deliverables go really well. And with that, being on as a business analyst and then as a product owner for a few years, I believe that product management is a very logical progression to where I was for like a few years as a business analyst or as a product owner. So I won't say it's something very differently things are happening, but it's a very logical progression if you have stayed in the industry as a BA or a PO for a few years. And I would also say that why it's a logical progression, because if we see, like Atlassian has this way of working where we say that the product managers have to do 4 things basically. So it starts from wonder phase, where it is about identifying the problem statement, understanding the market. So that's wonder. Then it's the explore phase where you are designing, solutioning, prototyping. And then it's the make phase, which is the business analysis phase, I would say, where you are executing things, you're making sure that things are running well with your sprint methodologies and agile and all of that. And then it's your impact, which is basically your tracking what you have built, the data analysis part, what we are seeing right now. So that's what is that's Atlassian's way of working, of building, of doing this 4 things, categorizing the PM work into 4 things. And I believe that BAs or as POs, you are building your execution muscles in all the years where you're working. So product management is, I would say that if you really want to have bigger impact, you want to create more more value to the customers, you want to be building amazing things and want to do something more in your career, then that's a very logical progression of widening your career space.
Great. So you saw this as a natural progression for you, because you spent time in understanding the businesses, analyzing them more on a tactical. Now let's get into some strategic aspects of it, and why we should build what we want to build, right? And that's a fundamental thing that is. So great. So Srinivas, what's your view? How did you get interested into this?
So when I was a BA in one of the product organizations, say Pegasystems, I was a business analyst. So I was working for product development for field service management. I was working under a product manager. So that's where I got a curiosity on what's the difference between a product manager and a business analyst. So I started exploring the activities and the works, which was already I was doing for 4 years at the time as a BA. Then I started showing interest on doing the product management activities and the work, and trying to be as a proxy product manager, because he was sitting in US and I was in India. So I was trying to bridge the gap, and as well as being as a proxy BA in the IST time. So that's where I started exploring on what is my next role, where I have to go, and then I reached to the stage where I was a lead BA for almost like 10 years of business analyst, starting from business analyst, senior BA, and lead BA. Then what's the next role? Then I have seen like my company was giving me the delivery manager or such roles, but which I am not really interested. So then I took some input from my network of product managers from the previous organization, which they suggested me that you need to unlearn few things. So that's where I started exploring what the options available in the market. Then I got very good suggestions that I should join ICPM course for my IPL, and the course which I took, and which dedicatedly requires 6 months of time, where I need to complete all the capstones and assignments and attend all the sessions and learn and all the basic things, all in the full stack of what product manager does.
Right.
And I've attended the skillathons and 2 talentathons of IPL, and that's where I got an explore of learn doing things.
So good. I think those are some of the words that maybe the audience may not be familiar, but we will peel that in a minute. But I'm glad that you brought that stage where you realize that for you to get into the next stage of your career, you will have to take a leap and get into, and something fascinated you about product management here. But once you kind of got that clarity, today, if you look at it, information about product management is there everywhere, right? You have tons of videos, thanks to YouTube, thanks to Coursera, thanks to Udemy, thanks to Udacity or Upgrad, whatever it is, lots of videos, at marginal cost. In fact, almost most of them are free today, right? And also lots and lots of people writing about product management and different aspects of product management, right? So in a way, it's overwhelming as well. So Anurakta, how did you navigate that situation to come around to say, what is the right thing for you? What made you look at some structured way of going through this?
Yeah, so I think that in normal situations also, when we are at a certain level and we want to move to a certain level, some things within our current state should change. And if we look into this side of our career, which is on the product management side, I could think of 3 options at that point when I was thinking to make the shift. One is do a MBA in some institute for product management. I wasn't very sure of that because I have already done an MBA. It doesn't fit me. Second is like connect to PMs within your organization, take some projects, offload their work, and really you get this opportunity within your org, do work as a PM with them. Or third is take a very formal training. Third thing worked really for me because I think what even I'll little come to what I got from IPL basically. So one of the first thing is the breadth of content which they provide you as a PM. Because if we look into Google or YouTube, which I have been doing for some time also, what happens is you get a very small part of it. Like everybody talks about prioritization, everybody talks about what's like the CEO or why you should do this. But that's really a very small, like 5% of your complete life as a PM is in real life. So that starting from ideation, understanding the market, and like everything till you ship a product, that breadth of understanding is what I got here. And secondly, I would say that you might read a lot, but you need to work on real life use cases and scenarios. You should have that problem solving skills. And the assignments, when you work with others and do it, that was helpful. And third thing I would say is your community, because what you believe is what you achieve. So if you're doing it in isolation, you will never have this belief and that confidence that I also can make it to a PM. So I think this community really helps you, a community which has aspiring PMs, a community which has budding PMs, community with experienced PMs. So that really gives you that you are in a space where you're always hearing about PMs.
Yeah.
And that gives you that confidence. Yeah.
No, that's true. There's also an interesting other side to it, right? Which is while we go through this, either through a structured approach of doing this in a hands-on way, as you outlined, right? There are a lot of people who also say take a DIY approach, right? Which is there's nothing wrong with that. I think if you are a person who can put the pieces of the puzzle together
Yeah.
and dedicate some serious regular time to it, and you're able to make that progress without self-motivating, self-inspiring, all of that, that is a valid approach as well, right? But there's one thing that I've seen the difference between the two. One is, one interesting analogy comes to my mind. I actually have two boys, and the younger one loves to play football, right? And he really likes football. He's about 12 years, and he plays football in his school, and he thinks he knows football, right? Because he has developed the vocabulary by watching football games. Recently, World Cup football, all the friends talk about it. And there is a language in football, right? So there is this wing, left wing, right wing, defense, striker, all of those terms that they come. And he thinks that I can directly play in the competition, right? And he was asking me the other day, I said, but maybe we should take you to some coaching, right? Let's put you in some coaching so that you actually can learn this better. No, I already know this, right? So this is the thing. People learn some bits of skills. There is a playground. You can actually play, right? Metaphorically, even in product management, you can have a playground and, as you said, volunteer projects, take some from some people and do it. But then are you doing this the right way?
Yeah.
What is the blind spots that you have? Only somebody standing outside and can actually look at what you're doing and say, you know what, you are using your left leg too much, and that is not good for a right wing player. And these are the things that somebody from outside perspective can bring in and offer that. And that makes us from good to great, right? So the fundamental aspect of value of coaching. So Srinivas, you moved into the PM role from the BA role as well, right? And how did you make this? Because a lot of questions come from people to say, I don't have a product manager experience. I don't have a title of it. How do you think that anybody will even be convinced that I can do this role? Right? And since you have made the transition, what worked for you? What kind of approach did you take?
Uh, there is no specific approach here. So first thing what I have focused is on what a PM does in my real-time experience of working with a product organization. So I keep on working with him, and I trying to learn the things he is doing and taking his work and acting as not just acting, but performing as a proxy PM in the IST time. And that's where my senior management has identified to elevate me as a associate product manager. At that time, there was some feedback saying like, yeah, I need to improve more skills. So when certain feedback comes like I need to improve, that's where I started exploring that. Yes, this is a point where I need to learn a real-time what product manager in all dimensions, right from UX designing to digital product management and marketing, everything. Though I did an MBA, but this is something very specific to product management.
Got it. And so did you make the transition within the company or from some different company? If it is, I thought it was a different company, right?
Yes.
So did you go and apply, give your resume, and get convince people, impress people in the interviews to get there?
No, through IPL, I was part of the ICPM course, and ICPM conducts the talentathon. So I first attended one of the talentathon. I got a feedback. That's where I tried to explore like what mistakes I was doing. Then I attempted another talentathon, and that's where I cracked. So the learning point is taking up the seriously the 6 months of course, and learning every aspect of the project management. And when in the talentathon, taking it seriously, and what is the case they have given, and cracking that, and presenting in very in a PM mindset, and
Yeah,
clearing rest of the rounds.
yeah, I think that's an amazing move because well, for those of the audience who are unfamiliar with that word, talentathon, it's a hiring event, right? It's an event where hiring managers from different companies come to hire from the pool of talent that is here. Whoever is going through these programs, and these hiring managers usually are not HR or talent managers, right? These are actual PM hiring managers, and they come with an acknowledgement and understanding that many of you don't have a prior product management experience, and hence how do we evaluate them based on certain challenge that we give, certain case that we give. You come back, work on it, present it to them, and there are three things that are happening, right? One, you are actually becoming confident yourself on these particular product skills, and number two, you are actually demonstrating application of that knowledge in the context of that case study or the challenge. And number three, you are actually influencing the hiring managers without authority that you are the right person for this and they should hire you, right? And I keep hearing about these stories often, but I'm actually glad that you mentioned that you've gone through this. In fact, 8 or 9 companies every month come to hire for these product roles, right? So super, that's fascinating. So now that you are in a situation where rubber meets the road, right? Going through a nice upskilling, understanding, hands-on with faculty practitioners as your faculty and mentors, one-on-one career coaching and skill coaching. All of that is nice, but now you are in a role where everything is put to test, right? So Anurukta, how are you leveraging all of those things in your current role?
So I would say, I'll again say that in a particular project or product, wherever we are working, execution is one of a core skill set. Like
Yeah.
you need to build those execution mindset. You cannot, or that muscles, I would say. It cannot be that you want something, you talk something, and then you finally don't execute. So it doesn't go like that. So execution skill set or mindset is what I have gained from the past, and that I'm leveraging today in my current organization. But what the new things which I'm doing as a PM is definitely understanding the pain points and doing the value articulations, doing a lot of solutioning, designing, prototyping, measuring the impacts. Those are all new things as a product manager for me from the role. But I believe that all those things in the past, I had actually worked also with a PM in the past, and with the courses which we had done, also the use cases, those get us very familiar with the terminologies.
I think the vocabulary is where
Yeah.
it becomes much easier for you to have that conversation with different team members, right? So they know that you are talking sense, and you know that you are actually getting your message through. That is a key part of it, right? Super.
Yeah.
And how about you, Srinivas? How are you, making sure that your role right now, working with lots of different team members, is being effective?
So in the previous career, the scope of my interaction will be very limited with the development team or my onshore counterpart. So now I get an opportunity to interact with all the stakeholders. So core AI is evolving very fastly with a lot of artificial intelligence and machine learning skills.
Yeah.
So this is the one skill, knowingly or unknowingly, I joined as a product manager. So I was fortunate that I'm entering into a zone which is futuristic.
Yeah.
Everyone is speaking now on the artificial intelligence and machine learning. So this
Yeah.
is a one learning curve which which came to me parallelly. Another opportunity where I directly get interact with the engineering team and the CXOs who are the decision makers, and also with the fellow product managers who are already been there in the organizations and they're doing the great work here
Yeah.
on futuristic products.
Great. So I was just scrolling through the questions that are asked by some of the audience members. So let me bring some of these to you guys, right? So Anurukta, what skill sets can you carry from BA to product management, right? There's Shekhar Mohanty asked these questions.
Okay. Yeah, I think I actually answered this that as BAs, we carry those execution mindset, which means your negotiation skill set, stakeholder collaboration, agile methodologies, domain understanding, your technical acumen. So you carry those skill sets, very big part of the complete framework as a PM you will work. Like, additional things, as I mentioned, which goes before it, the wonder phase, the explore phases, and the impact phases, which goes beyond those skill sets which you are carrying as a BA.
Okay, excellent. And what do you think, Srinivas?
Yeah, adding to Anukrita, we can add the documentation skills and presentation skills. So we have to present the ideas to the various stakeholders, also with the development team where we get a lot of feedbacks. That's where the product evolves. And we have to capture all those things in the various documents. So the skills of documenting either way in the form of a Word doc or in the various product development tools like Jira or any other tools, and the presenting skills. These two things which I feel.
Yeah, I think that's a very important aspect of it, right? It's not just about the core product management thinking and skill sets. Because of the nature of the role, your ability to stand up and tell a compelling story that people will actually understand why you need to do these things. Even though none of them report to you, they will have to agree with you and say, well, that's a problem that we want to solve, right? And we know how to solve it, so let's do something about it, right? So that is number one. The second thing is, and especially for people who are looking at much more senior or strategic roles, right? Product management, product leadership. In fact, strategic acumen, business finance, negotiation, conflict management, these become super important, right? Because while you're all negotiating every day on certain things, negotiating at senior roles, you're negotiating on a different level, different things altogether, whether it is budgets, whether it is customers, whether it is markets, whether it is resources or any of those, right? So that those things become even more important aspect of it. Good. So Geetanjali question, I think you may have answered this, but let me just say, so she's a business analyst with 9 years experience, mostly in bid management. What should I do? What kind of certification? What can I get? To next role? I have a completely blank mind. Now, I hope your blank mind is not blank now, Geetanjali, after amazing insights from both Anurukta and Srinivas. But Anurukta, you want to take 30 seconds to quickly?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, I think even I was as a BA and a PO for a good amount of experience. I think, Gitanjali, that's amazing that you are already having that experience and the domain knowledge. You already must have built those skill sets of stakeholder collaboration, negotiation, having that language to talk to the engineering and the agile practices. So that gives you a good foothold right now. And if you are passionate to create bigger impact, to change things, how things are right now, I think definitely product management, as I started with, is a very logical progression, very interesting career. So yeah, you can start with all the three things which I was saying, like MBA or do a big formal training. The training is going to give you that breadth, which will give you that confidence to start on a PM role.
That is true. And I think, the lot of people also ask this question, will an MBA help me, right, get into product management? Now, to me, it's kind of a fascinating question, right? As a hiring manager, I never cared for an MBA. A lot of people that I know never care for an MBA, right? Now, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't do it. If you have the time, if you have the appetite, you will get 5 extra points for it. And those 5 extra points is also because that signals to me that you have taken a serious commitment to do something about it, right? Not because this MBA from here and there and whatnot, right? So at a certain stage in life, and by the way, if it is that business degree, again, very specialized in products and product leadership, I may actually be very, interested in that rather than you doing operations, HR, and a lot of those things, macroeconomics, microeconomics. Those are all good at a very early stage in careers, right? At a certain stage, the expectations are different. As a hiring manager, I want you to jump in right away and get productive as soon as possible. No time for longer trainings, right? And that's a key part of it. Good, super. So one last question. How can a PM make a difference for a mature product? Market might be content with this. Rupayan Ganguly asked, market might be content with the available products and there might be scope for only minuscule increments. In such a market, what's the role can a PM play? So I'll actually take this question. I think it's important to understand in products, products have a life cycle, customers have a life cycle, right? And when we talk about a product life cycle, what you're referring to, Rupayan, is what we call as a maturity stage, right? A maturity stage is an indication, and you have to use certain metrics to know whether you're in maturity stage or not. Usually it is a growth rate, year-on-year growth rate or quarter-on-quarter growth rate, whether the revenue is declining or staying consistent or growing, right? So that the organization will define that. So if your product has entered that particular stage, which means you are not growing more than the market is growing. The market is growing at a certain stage, and you're also either growing at the same stage or going slowly down, right? And in that context, often I've seen product managers, to keep everybody busy, will still come up with requirements, will still come up with something to do, right? Not very useful. And this is the guidance whereas product leaders we give is get out, spend your time on new problems to solve, right? You invest 10%, 15% on keeping the existing customers happy, but now your focus, efforts, and money should shift on identifying those new problems to solve, coming up with new ideas and new products to build, right? So it's a thing that you have to jump. And often many PMs, if they spend years in building those products, there is this emotional attachment, right? Until the product is dead, until all customers leave away, I'm not going to leave, right? It's a bad idea. So it's an important aspect of characteristics of mature product. So finally, last one, any piece of advice for the audience who are interested and keen on moving into product management role from both of you, right? So let's start with Anuruddha.
Seek help. It's important to ask for help when required. Take help of coaches, take help of the bigger community which you are getting as a part of in your any formal training you are joining through. IPL is one thing which happened for me, but yeah, I mean, I'm not sure about the other things which happens in the market, but take help from the coaches, from the people who can guide you to a place where you want to be there. So that's one thing. And second thing I would say, if you're passionate about any like in-house projects which have an idea, please go out to market, do that. I have also done about it in the coaching, in the video making, and that gave me a lot of exposure to understand what the market is all about, how to connect with the stakeholders, how to connect with business leaders. So you can actually do that and get a lot of exposure. So,
great. Awesome. How about you, Srinivas? Any last piece of advice?
I would suggest if they get everyone gets an opportunity to interact with product managers in their organizations. Otherwise, interact with them, learn from them, and observe them what they exactly do. Try to take some activity from them. So that's where they can start experiencing that taste of what product manager does. So then we have to analyze that whether it suits to us or not, whether it creates some excitement to us or not. Then we can go forward with this.
Very good point. I think, again, I would slightly put a little more emphasis or rather sense of urgency on the statement that you said. If you get an opportunity to interact with product managers, I would actually say go and find that opportunity, right? I mean, how difficult is it to go to a PM and say, I'll buy you a coffee, tell me how your day went, right? Every PM would love to talk a lot anyway, right? So you take them to place, understand, and then offer help, saying that, based on what little I know, what can I do for you? How can I help you, right? So these are small things that many of us are very hesitant to do, to get exposure to know, as Srinivas was saying, first figure out if this is something that you want to do, right? And many of you may have already decided or figured out, which is good, but if not, this will help, right? So with that, and I mostly focused on the questions that came in the Q&A box and not on the chat window, because the chat one is too busy with so many links and question chat messages and all. But thank you, both of you, Anurakta and Srinivas. This was interesting. I'm wishing you the very best in your career. I hope you get into pretty senior roles very quickly. I'm sure it's going to happen, right? And take care, right? Over to you, Pragya. And thank you, folks. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
So in the view of time constraints, we have to end the Q&A here, but we see a lot of questions coming up. So audience, you can book an appointment with our counselor to get all your questions, doubts, and queries clarified. Here's a moment to scan the QR code. And thank you, Sai, Anurakta, and Srinivas for a fantastically interactive session and taking up your time from your busy schedule. And thank you, audience, for joining in. And I hope to host you again soon. Thank you so much. Have a great evening, everyone.
Thanks all. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. All the best to everyone.
All the best.